Henry Cejudo put out a video. Now, this was wonderful. This was wonderful, quite frankly. So, picture this. The establishing shot of this video, don't forget, Henry's making this himself. He's bringing in the camera, he's bringing in the audio, he's bringing in the lighting, he's having to write the script. The whole thing is a piece of theater written, produced, and performed by Henry. This is one of the best pieces of theater I have ever seen in MMA. And before you guys go out and see this and go, well, that wasn't really wonderful theater, I said it's one of the best pieces of theater you've seen in MMA, of which has almost no theater. But the establishing shot is the entire shot. Henry Cejudo, kneeling, on the edge of his bed, tucking his children in, and reading them a bedtime story from a great big huge book. He opens this great big huge book, like right to the middle, and then he begins reading them like a father would. A story that they must know, a story to aspire to. It's about the greatest combat athlete of all time, and his name is none other than Henry Cejudo. Oh, and by the way, the children that he's tucking in, the little triplets, happen to be the belt he won against Henry, against Demetrius, the belt he won against TJ, and the belt that he just defended and won in defeating Marlon. So he's got his belts like children, and he's reading them this story, and it's brilliant. And partway through, one of the children has an accident in his diaper, and he reaches down and takes the diaper off the belt and says, oh, that was TJ, and throws the diaper over his shoulder. A little bit disgusting, I get it, but he's pretending they're kids, right? I mean, he's just living the gimmick. It was wonderful. So he gets to the end of the story, and then he informs his children that Daddy is tired. Over the last 12 months, Daddy beat Demetrius Johnson, the greatest of all time. Then Daddy beat TJ Dillashaw, the greatest bantamweight of all time. Then Daddy beat the top-ranked Marlon Moraes. Daddy's tired. Daddy's shoulder hurts. Daddy needs a tune-up fight. He needs an easy fight. At which point he then stands up. Now you're getting all of this from Henry's profile. Again, he's kneeling on the bed. You're seeing all of this from the side. So he stands up, and now he's facing the camera head on, at which point he is wearing a shirt that is calling out Dominick Cruz and referring to the fight in quotation marks as a tune-up fight. Now, nobody in the history of time in their right mind has considered Dominick Cruz a tune-up fight. But it's a wonderful narrative, and you can see how this is really going to poke a thorn in the side of Dominick Cruz. Oh, and by the way, after he calls him out, he then tells Dominick, and you should know, Dominick is originally from the state of Arizona. Henry is from the state of Arizona. So he says to Dominick, how can you go around telling people you're the greatest fighter in the world? You ain't even the greatest fighter in Arizona. He's got the shirt to back it up. I just loved it. And I really did love it. Was it cringeworthy? Is it all these things that, we expect Henry to be? Sure it was. Yeah, you bet. But this also reflects back to something else. And there's only two characters in the sport right now. There's only two, Henry Cejudo and Colby Covington. They're the only guys with a gimmick and a character. But it's fun and it's entertaining. But it also is showing in many ways the sport's going in a different direction. In some ways. Will this be good or will this be bad? We'll find out. But we talked about this about 6 months ago as it pertained to Colby Covington. Colby was the first guy. Henry is now being the second. We're even seeing Chris Cyborg doing some. We're seeing Alistair Overeem. We're seeing this start to catch on. But what Colby began to do was to invest in his own career. Now, to tell you what I mean by that, okay, if you're a top guy in a top spot, generally meaning co-main or main event, there are going to be built-in media implications to that, opportunities that are going to be given to you. But it is a major chicken and egg, cart and horse, right? How do I get to be one of those top guys if I don't have any media? And how do I get any media if I'm not one of those top guys? It is a really slippery, tricky system. So what Colby came out and did is he began hiring his own production crews. He didn't wait on the promoter to come in or a media outlet. He wrote the check. He found the cameraman. He found the lighting and the audio guy. He began producing his own content. And he went to the only place he knew to go, which was his social media. Well, he did such a good job with it, sites started picking it up. Some of them mainstream all the way to TMZ. But it cost him money. It cost him effort. It cost him mental capital. He had to plan this. He had to strategize. But he did it, and he pulled it off, and now he's a main event fighter. It worked. Henry is now doing a lot of that himself. Henry just put out another video this week. If you guys aren't seeing it, I would strongly suggest you go. I follow him on Twitter. I imagine the same stuff goes up on his Instagram or Facebook. I just see it on Twitter. But he put out a dance video. You know, he's working this angle where he's calling out the Bullet, this intergender champion, all of this stuff. And it's a major elbow, wink, wink, right? But he's staying with it. No matter how ridiculous, he just will not let off it. So the Bullet, after her fights, puts out this really cool dance. You guys have seen it. Well, now Henry puts out a video of him dancing with basically the message being, I can even dance better than you. Not only can I fight better than you, I can even dance better than you. And it's just an angle that he's just not dry. He's turning it into something. The first time he said it, I was disgusted. Oh my God, you're calling out a guy. Then okay. Takes me about 20 minutes. Okay, tongue in cheek. I see what you're doing here. Then the Bullet respawn. Now we're having some fun. The Bullets respawn. She's on Ariel's show. Now we're having a little fun. Now Henry's even saying, I can even outdance you. As silly as it is, it's done in a playful manner, and it works. And it's something entertaining, and it's something to see. And I offer this to you guys because you only have two characters in the sport right now. And last week I had spoke about how frustrating the 125-pound division was to me. Because if you just look at the last 12 months, they were all about to be out an opportunity and out a job. That's very sobering and serious talk right there. Henry saved the division. None of them have done anything different. None of them have stepped forward to do things different. None of them have learned from him and are trying to emulate it. And I found that surprising. That just surprises me. But when I talked about that, a number of people who agreed with me were also saying, yeah, but what do you want him to do? You know, you're always talking about this entertainment and these characters and these angles. You know, what do you just want to make this WWE? And I do have to be very careful about the way I speak about that. Because no, that is not the message that I want out there. And no, I do not want it to be like WWE. And no, I don't want everybody to have a character and a gimmick. That's true. But when I am talking about being entertaining, I am just talking about being yourself and turning the volume up and nothing more than that. And while Colby and Henry may be doing characters, there's also other guys out there that would have an opportunity to just come out and speak their mind. I mean, I watched Tony Ferguson flip the switch. I mean, I watched him go, okay, here, I'm going to be myself, but I'm going to let people know who I am. I'm going to do it louder. I'm not going to apologize for it. A lot of people think that Conor is a gimmick. And yes, there's a lot of showman to him, but he is being himself and turning the volume up. And that's all I'm encouraging you to do. There seems to be so many of us that are still stuck in 1993 in this sport when it very first started. Some of us with the techniques that still believe that as long as I can go learn a guard, I can win a championship. Even though nobody with a championship did it from the guard, not one person. And frankly, not one person since 1994 has ever won a championship from the guard. Piece of the game. But you have to know where it fits in. You have to understand that the guard work was also put in place for a no time limit situation. That became very relevant because Hoist Gracie himself, who made this known and famous, kind of stepped away from the sport as soon as they put a round system in. If you're telling me every 5 minutes I'm going to lose the position I want to be in, then I will happily tell you that the craft that I brought to you all is not the most effective. This is designed for a more of a real situation where people don't break you up and pull you apart. Okay, great. But some of us didn't learn that message. And I share this with you because it also breeds back to a misconception of respect about mixed martial arts. Respect about mixed martial arts came from nowhere other than Hollywood. None of you and none of our other viewers have any frame of reference to what martial arts even are, aside from what you learned in Hollywood, through whether it be a Bruce Lee movie, where it's about honor and respect and bowing, to a Chuck Norris movie, to a Van Damme, to a Steven Seagal. The only frame of reference that anybody had about martial arts was about honor and respect. And then you put in your made up beliefs about what is honor and respect. Is it saying nice things? Is it keeping your mouth shut? Is it bowing to your opponent? I find that very confusing when the very next thing you're going to do after you did all those things is attempt to attack him amongst the head, neck, chest, and face. I find that a little bit of a bizarre message, but many people clung to this. And it is a little bit tough because I am not on the side that this is not a sport and a game and that sportsmanship is a very real thing from little league on up to the pros at all. But to make believe that this is a martial art of any kind, as opposed to a fight, as opposed to a cage, boxing doesn't come out and try to do this whole we're a martial art thing. I mean, it's just kind of a weird concept, right? Don't forget the term mixed martial arts is only around today because they needed a law passed through the Nevada State Legislature in 2001, and they had to call it something. No holds barred, cage fight. It just didn't quite seem to resonate from a markability standpoint the same way as mixed martial arts did. Because now you're invoking emotions and imagery of children and kata and all these positive thoughts. It's nothing more than that. But somewhere, because when they chose to pass that law, they chose to call it mixed martial arts instead of pancrase, which is what this sport is, by the way, pancration. It's 100% what this sport is. Taken out in the Olympic Games up until 1904, quite frankly. Absolutely, this is the sport of pancration. But because the law was passed and was called mixed martial arts, you then had to invoke these old feelings that you got from a false narrative of Hollywood. And it seems to live on. And I don't agree that there's anything respectful about stabbing a guy in the back when he turns around, but being nice and polite and phony to his face. I just don't agree with that. And I'm not looking for anybody to manufacture conflict, but I will share with you that in this sport, you have dispute, and then you have dispute resolution. Do you guys ever wonder why Judge Joe Brown is such a big show? Why the People's Court was such a big show when you were growing up? There's another one. I can't think of what her name is. But some of these court shows, you ever know why you like that and why they do so well? Because you have dispute, and then you have a dispute resolution. So if you have a dispute, and you've got to be lucky to be that. I don't want you to go out and manufacture it. The sport, the punches and the kicks and the grit and the lights and the camera, it's all taking place in the cage. It's a very special thing. It's a very, very special thing. But if you were to look at what does the best, and when you're talking about, in this case, Henry Cejudo, who saved an entire division, and you want to get into the passenger seat with him, which means you're a marquee headlining world title fight. If you want to do that, there is something there that needs to be special. If you're surrounded with a whole bunch of other guys and none of them are special, yeah, okay, great. At some point, we'll just line you all up and throw a dart, and whoever it hits, go ahead and walk in there with Henry. That's a real part of the sport. But it's not special, it's not meaningful, it doesn't stick around. I'm speaking to you from the more educated standpoint of the top of the bill. I don't really know a damn thing about the undercard. I don't really know a whole lot about it. I wouldn't be an expert about talking about it. I really don't know. But I could tell you about being the top line. I could tell you from experience. But more importantly, and far less arrogantly, that sounded very arrogant, guys, I just mean it from a studying of history. To look at the really great and special fights. Look, there's misconceptions all over about this. Well, you got to finish fights. I have to have a fight finished. Okay, great. That's a wonderful narrative. George St. Pierre didn't finish any fights. Nobody made more money than George St. Pierre. Nobody drew better than George St. Pierre. Just to clear that up. So we don't have to do this finish fight, but it's a good concept. And to word it a little bit better, you do want guys who are trying to finish, which just means they're not coasting, they're not stalling, they're working hard the whole time. That's it. The fights that win fight of the night of any kind of recent memory, and particularly throughout time, if you were to study them, very few of them ended in a finish. They were a Mike Perry style fight that went all the way to the wire with two guys trying to win. And nobody lost, but eventually time ran out. That's what the best fights are. But these narratives get creative, and some people just will not let them go. There's narratives out there about what I've done. I hear this one all the time. Look at my resume. Here's what I have done, and therefore here's the opportunity that should be afforded to me. All the way down to pay. This is what I should be paid because I've won, and then fill in the blanks. It's like, guys, do we really have to keep going around about this? you will be paid a good, nice, fair percentage of whatever it is you bring in. If you are a loss leader, like 90% of the card, that's not really a fair argument. I will also hear people say, well, but I can do things outside of the sport. And I do so well outside of the sport. You go, okay, but time out. Would have that opportunity ever been given to you? This just happened with an athlete. Now I can't recall who it was. I want to say Luke Rockhold, but I'm wrong. It wasn't Luke Rockhold, but for some reason I want to say Luke. But he was doing stuff in movies. Whoever this athlete was doing stuff in movies. And he was saying, man, I can make more in the movie business. I don't know why I'm going in the fight business. Like, okay, but time out. You're not in the movies had you not been in the fight business. Oh, and by the way, the guys who are your promoters are the ones that called the movie houses and got you that role. So if you love that role, and that's a really great thing, just don't forget who got it for you. Make sure you understand it all ties in. Somebody's trying to help you get out there, help you get exposure, hoping that it comes back and they get an ROI for their efforts. That's fair. That's business. That's above board. Nobody's done anything wrong. But it is very common that you will isolate the two, make them mutually exclusive terms, and then point the gun back at the guy who laid the whole thing up to start with. One of these frustrating things, but it will just never go away. You just can't ever get around it. So then you want the guy with the attitude of I will fight anybody and I don't care who I fight. That attitude is wonderful when it's real. It's usually not. It's usually something fake tough guys say in front of the camera, and then as soon as they get in the back, they refuse to sign a contract, generally. But if you do meet those guys where that really is the attitude, boy, that's the attitude you want. It's not the answer you want. You want a very specific person for whatever reason. Personal conflict. Nate Diaz just called out Masvidal. Had nothing to do with personal. He actually said, I just think George deserves the fight because he's been around forever and I've been around forever. We should be matched up in a marquee fight because we both earned it. Okay, great. No problem. But you had a reason. You could call a guy out just because he's ranked in front of you. You could call a guy out because he did something to you in the past. I mean, there's good reasons, bad reasons, indifferent. But guys, a reason is so much more valuable and significant and refreshing than having no reason. So I'm tying this all in to Henry Cejudo coming out, putting out the dance video, and then more recently doing a bedtime story to his 3 belts as though they were his children, which really was, from a creative standpoint, a piece of brilliance. He read them a story about the greatest of all time, and it was himself. I mean, come on. This is great. And then you get a payoff at the end, which is he's now got a call out himself. Look, when the champ calls somebody out, do you know how rare that is? Henry may be the only guy who calls somebody out and doesn't get what he wants because he's called out like 10 different people. I mean, right off the top of my head, Frankie got called out, Uriah Faber got called out, Valentin Shevchenko got called out, now Dominick's getting called out. I'm hearing he's supposed to go back to 125 and fight Joseph Benavidez, the one and only guy he didn't call out. But when you're seeing something like that and you're wondering, okay, well, where do I go? And Chael wants everything to be WWE. You're absolutely not correct about that. But I could see how you would come to that conclusion because I do often talk about the entertainment side. I'm just trying to talk about it to point you in the direction that, no, you don't have to come out and be a jester and be a fool. You don't have to. You can. But you don't have to. You do need to be yourself, and whatever your message is, come out and get it out. And some of your guys' messages is very dull. It's very, hey, my dad made me do this. I don't know anything else. There's a gym near my house. I never got a job. I went into this. Some of your messages are very dull and simple. But I would still rather hear that. I would rather hear my father drove me into this. This is what he wants to do, and I'm trying to do that for him. There's a story there. Don't be afraid to tell it. We want to hear these stories. We want to know what the message. We want to know why you're there. We want to know why this matters to you. Kevin Lee, just to talk in the same vein to help to prove my point. Kevin Lee was in the same spot of a Colby, of a Henry, who knew he had something special, but also knew he couldn't get media opportunities until he had certain placements on cards. Knew he couldn't get those placements on cards until he had certain media opportunities. Kevin Lee had nothing but a credit card and a cell phone. He hadn't made his money yet. He hadn't fought for the championship yet. He hadn't been a main event yet. But he was young, he was tougher than hell, he was good looking, he had a great personality, and he knew some people. He could get certain people's phone, so he sits at home one day, and he just starts calling all around. Called for my number. I was one. Called for Joe Rogan's number. called for Errol Hawani's number, calls all around, gets a hold of the people who he thought had a big platform and could get his message out there, paid for his own plane tickets to go to those locations in person, come in studio, and put his message out. I don't know if that had ever been done before to that extent before Kevin Lee did it. But that's what he did. And the next thing you knew, he was a main event. He has never had a fight since he did that where they called a press conference and he wasn't invited. He has never been lower than a co-main. Oh, and by the way, a world title opportunity was mixed in there, which comes with sponsors, which comes with nice paychecks, which helps to pay the whole way. But he got out in front of it. He did not just sit at home and think, well, eventually they'll come to me. I give a really good piece of advice, if I must say. I got a call a number of years ago, around 2015, from a guy. Said, hey, running a gym. I got a great fighter out here. He's doing everything right. Here's his resume. But they haven't called. When are they going to call? When are we going to get that call? And I remember coming through that era too, where all you wanted every day of your life was your phone rings and the other voice on it says, hey, this is Joe Silva. So that's a very real thing. And the advice I gave the guys, look, I love that he's working hard. I love that he's entering these events. I love that he's winning these events. But let me change one thing. Instead of waiting for the call, make the call. Call them and say, here's what this guy has done and he's not getting attention. Here's what his record is. Here's what his weight class is. Here's what his age is. Here's his potential. Oh, and let me send you a picture. By the way, it was really good advice. It's exactly what they did. But some of these guys that are getting out in front of it do not have to be these WWE. I hate when that comparison gets made. And my appreciation of wrestling is so greatly distorted. And I almost wish that I was separated from it and it never came out. I was a fan when I was a little kid. I have not watched that stuff since Hulk Hogan quit dropping legs on Andre the Giant in 1989. I came back for the Stone Cold and the Rock era. I left again. So that took me to about 1999 to 2001. I left again. I came back for the CM Punk. I left again. I'm not a huge wrestling fan, but to act as though there are not concepts and principles that you can take from that in terms of building interest with your words would be false. It's a very good comparison. And the fact that they can put on a product and sell out an arena while knowing these two are cooperating with each other is something very special, very unique. And it does need to be observed. So we've got a couple of characters in the sport in Colby and in Henry. But other guys could make some twists and turns. And so many I hear guys say, well, I don't like to talk trash. Then don't. Talk none. If you're not comfortable with it, don't do it. The greatest actors in Hollywood, the real greats, and I'm not talking about a true thespian out there. I'm not talking about like a Daniel Day-Lewis. I'm talking about the guys that really go out and do a great job and deliver for your money. Mark Wahlberg comes to mind. Denzel Washington comes to mind. Guys that are Will Smith comes to mind. Guys that are just flat reliable. They pick roles that work, and the movie delivers, and it doesn't matter about winning awards and Oscars and Tonys and whatever, Grammys, whatever they call those awards, where those elitist pricks get together and honor one another. I'm talking about somebody that parts with $10 of his hard-earned money and 2 hours later does not regret doing it. That's what a good movie is. Wahlberg, Denzel, these guys, reliable. They never let you down. The other side of the coin, they play the same character over and over, just in a different film. They've got 2 or 3 characters they can play, and they play that same character over and over. They just do it in different films. They look for the right script that matches what they do. So the part that I'm offering for you is I'm not saying go out there and be somebody that you aren't. If you're not a trash, don't talk trash. There's other ways to do it. Mike Perry has the it factor. Mike Perry just has it. If Mike Perry's doing something, you go, okay, something's happening here, and you stop what you're doing. Mike Perry saved a turtle a month ago, and it went viral. Do you know how much trash he talked to that turtle? None. Do you know how many words he used in the video of saving the turtle? Try 0. And it went viral. There's a message in this. Mike Perry's now putting out videos of himself sparring. Guys have been doing that from the beginning of time. They flop. They bomb. I got a big YouTube channel. I put out my sparring video. They bomb. I go on pay-per-view, generate tens of millions of dollars. I go give you a free session. They bomb. I don't know why. They just do. Mike Perry puts out sparring video. It goes crazy. It gets shared 60,000 times. He's just one of these guys that has it. But he doesn't talk a lot of trash. He's not bad at it if you put a microphone in his face. He's not bad. It's a fun guy to listen to. I just offer him to an example for you as somebody that gives you an insider look, brings you along the journey, sends out some pictures, doesn't say a word at all, and can always be placed on a main card and can always be counted on and will always have people having a reaction when he walks into an arena. It's just one example I'm offering you. But when I talked about the flyweight division, and the flyweight division needs guys to learn lessons over the last 12 months by watching a guy come in and make a fool of himself, save your division. Save it. I used to go places with Henry Cejudo. Somebody walk up to me, they asked Henry to hold the camera while they took a picture. They didn't even know who he was. I go places with Henry Cejudo now. I have to get out of the way or I will get trampled. I am not exaggerating. People are running up to him in hotels. They're running up to him in the street. We're trying to do something on a set of ESPN. We can't start recording because people have come around and they're starting to chant for him. So if you think he's a fool, guys, he's just doing his job, which is he's just entertaining and bringing in attention. The Rock, who will go down as one of the great entertainers ever. But The Rock will always say that when people try to say you're a pro wrestler or you're an actor or you're a singer or you're a funny guy or you're a strong guy, you're a handsome guy. Rock will always and just say, I'm just an entertainer. I'm so happy you are entertained, but I'm only here to entertain. And it's a very real thing. And I could see where if you listen to me over a period of time where you think, okay, Chael just wants the entertainment. What about the punches and the kicks? No, hey, don't kid yourself. These all go hand in hand. I didn't give you one example of one guy through this that couldn't then go back it up with the punches and kicks. I'm just offering for you that it is a side of it. And when you do look at the bantamweights and go, well, what do they do? I hear Chael's point and he's right, but what do they do? Don't worry about it. You're what we would call a mark, okay? Just buy the ticket and sit in the seat. Leave the thinking to the thinkers. Apparently, well, what do I do? I get it. That's most people's response. They don't know what to do. Buy a ticket and some popcorn. Let the performer perform. But to not turn things up just a little bit is silly. And that's not the era we're in. And we used to be. And you will see people say, well, I want to see finishes and I want to see knock. Listen, I've been to cards where guys are getting knocked out. I've been there. And nobody else was. Place was empty. Crickets when it happened. It's not just about the knockout. Needs to be some reason that we're here. Why are we here and why are we doing this? You two are about to go and fight. I just want to know why. It's a very simple question. But I am your fan and I am your viewers and there is cameras everywhere and there are microphones everywhere. So somebody tell me why. I have the right to ask that. And I have the right to then tell you, if you don't let me in on that, I'm not coming back next time. And you're not going to like how your career goes when you finally get to that tipping point and a fan says, I've had enough. I want to know why. And for some odd reason, you're refusing to tell me. So I'm going to go somewhere else.
And Triple C went on to become rich and famous. And he became the greatest combat athlete of all time. The end. Oh my, man, what's that smell? TJ sharted again. Jesus. Anyways, kids, I've been thinking. Daddy's been having really tough fights lately. This last year and a half, he's fought Demetrius Johnson, the greatest of all time, beat him. TJ Dillashaw, the greatest bantamweight of all time, beat him. And also, we beat the killer in Marlon Moraes. Daddy wants an easy fight, kids. I want somebody that I could break. I want somebody brittle. I want somebody easy. In wrestling, we call them pud whackers, fish, or better yet, how about a tune-up fight? Dominick Cruz, I have a message for you. I don't know how you can say you're the best in the world when you're not even the best out of the state of Arizona. Dominick Cruz, you can do me a favor and you can bend the knee to Triple C2. And one last thing. Wash your filthy dog.